When will the media stop lying about cow terrorism? When will journalists stop using words like rakshak or vigilante? These are euphemisms that give respectability and justification to murderous Muslim-hating mobs. This is the language of cowardice. Take a look at the killing of Inspector Subodh Kumar Singh, a chilling assassination by a frenzied crowd. A crowd so inhumane that it then stops to take photographs of the fallen officer. The media says these were clashes after reports of bovine carcasses found in the nearby fields. Once again, this language creates equivalence. The word clashes suggests that Inspector Subodh may have been as responsible for his death as his killers were. This is also the language of cowardice. A police officer was killed for trying to keep the peace. These thugs murdered a man in uniform, and they have the gall to call themselves nationalist?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us here in The Scope. In this segment, we're going to be discussing the issue of famous Indian actor Naseeruddin Shah, who has expressed alarm over the direction his country is headed in, specifically in context of mob violence when cows are being transported and allegedly slaughtered. In a secular state, a right-wing government in power has created an atmosphere of insecurity for minorities. Is the tide changing, though, with the BJP losing power in 3 major states in the latest elections? Before we get to our guests, let me just play a clip of Naseeruddin Shah himself and what his opinion was on this.
अपनी औलाद के बारे में सोचकर, क्योंकि उनका मजहब ही नहीं है। मजहबी तालीम मुझे मिली थी और रत्ना को बहुत कम मिली थी, लेकिन मुझे थोड़ी ज़्यादा मिली थी। उसको बिल्कुल भी नहीं। एक लिबरल हाउस होल्ड था उसका, और हमने अपने बच्चों को मजहबी तालीम बिल्कुल नहीं दी, क्योंकि मेरा ये मानना है कि अच्छाई और बुराई का मजहब से कुछ लेना देना नहीं है। कई इलाकों में हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि एक गाय की मौत को ज़्यादा अहमियत दी जाती है एक पुलिस अफसर की मौत के बनिस्बत। कल को उन्हें कोई अगर एक भीड़ ने घेर लिया कि तुम हिंदू हो या मुसलमान, तो उनके पास तो कोई जवाब ही नहीं होगा। इस बात की फिक्र होती है, क्योंकि हालात जल्दी सुधरते तो मुझे नजर नहीं आ रहे। इन बातों से मुझे डर नहीं लगता, गुस्सा आता है। और मैं चाहता हूं कि हर राइट थिंकिंग इंसान को गुस्सा आना चाहिए, डर नहीं लगना चाहिए। हमारा घर है, हमें कौन निकाल सकता है यहां से।
All right, that is the clip, which has had a lot of reaction in India, both people supporting the actor and those speaking out against his words there. We're joined here in the studio by Mr. Salman, Shahid, who's a famous actor, and we appreciate him coming in, of course, taking his time out to speak to us on this important topic. And we're also joined by Ms. Shriya Dhondial, who is joining us from New Delhi, and she's a senior editor of CNN. IBN. We appreciate both of our guests. Shriya, I'll start with you, if I may. That was quite a heartfelt clip that we played there on the part of Mr. Naseeruddin Shah. What did you make of it and the reactions that have played out in India?
You know, Waqar, when the story broke, it actually broke on a show that I was doing. When we got this clip, we decided to play it out, because what Naseeruddin Shah was articulating is what very many right people right-thinking Indians feel. And increasingly, everyone feels the need to come out and articulate it, because at one level, we do feel that the situation is going out of control. To my surprise, actually not to my surprise, when we got some members of parliament from the BJP, the ruling party, to speak on my show, you know, one of the views they articulated was rather angrily, this is an actor. Yes, he's a famous actor. He's an award-winning actor, perhaps the best in India. But why put out something which is so polarizing? You're an actor. Your words are meant to soothe. That is what your role in society should be. Why are you trying to polarize? Why are you trying to vitiate the atmosphere? Another statement that came out from them and made me very upset, at least, Waqar, was when I was told this is an actor, why does he even have political views? To which, you know, all right-thinking Indians, all right-thinking people around the world would have said, so what? He's also a citizen of this country, he votes, and if he's angry about something, he needs to articulate it. But the fact is, this articulation is coming not just from Naseeruddin Shah, it's coming from very many, you know, right-thinking Indians as well. If you remember, a couple of years ago, you had another very famous actor, Amir Khan, speak about the environment in the country. And he'd spoken about how he and his Hindu wife, that's Kiran Rao, sometimes have spoken about the fact, should they be leaving this country for their child? Is the country safe for their child? Should they be leaving it?
Yeah.
Back then, I remember the backlash on Amir Khan was supremely severe. In fact, he had lost some endorsements as well, some very high-profile endorsements as well, because that was the sort of backlash that had come for him. For Nasiruddin Shah, I would say, this is the changing temperament of the country. When
Right.
Nasiruddin Shah has come out and articulated what he has, most people have come out and supported him and said, "To kya hua, sach hi to bol rahe hain."
Yeah. Okay, so Salman, what do you make of that as an actor yourself? Is your role to sugarcoat everything, or do you agree that Nasiruddin Shah has the right to speak his mind? And what do you make of his opinion?
You see, like in every field, I think there are people who will sugarcoat something and people who would blankly basically tell the truth. And I think Nasiruddin Shah is what we would call a committed actor. And he's been working in films which are films of commitment of one kind or the other. I mean, of social commitment of one kind or the other.
Right.
And for him to speak his mind is very justified, given his background. We all know in India and Pakistan and elsewhere in the world that there are extremist groups basically in every country.
Yeah.
There are extremist Christians in the USA, there are Zionist Christians in UK, everywhere. And there are people with more liberal and more balanced views, as we would call them at least. And there's always been a conflict between the two of them. And we have the same sort of conflict in Pakistan as they have in India now. In India, it's kind of emerged recently, but this BJP government, it had not emerged so visibly. I mean, it was not that visible during, I guess, the Congress government or whichever government they had prior to this one.
Yeah.
But this with Modi Saab at the helm of affairs has proven itself to be somewhat more extremist with fundamentalist views and fundamentalist views. I mean, right now, in fact, Nasiruddin Shah has also said something about the cricketer Virat Kohli, I believe.
Yes.
And so he's in that bent of mind, I think, where he's taking on issues and people.
All right, well, viewers, we're going to add another voice to this conversation. We're joined by Ms. Kavita Krishnan, who is with the All India Progressive Women's Association, and she's joining us live now from Delhi. Kavita, thank you for your time and for joining us here in The Scope. And Kavita, I'm going to go right into it. We know that there has been some controversy now ever since the actor Nasiruddin Shah spoke about the way that there have been mob violence in India, specifically when it came to Bulandshahr and the mob violence we saw there resulting in the killing of a policeman. What are your thoughts about that?
See, these are very much, I think, the signs of fascism in India today. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I'll tell you why I think so. For one thing, these incidents of mob lynching on the pretext of the cow, its victims have been mostly Muslims, some of them have been Dalits. And this kind of mob lynching has been politically orchestrated and encouraged by the ruling party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is its parent organization, and which is an openly fascist organization that wants to turn India into a Hindu nation. So in the past 4 years that Narendra Modi has been India's Prime Minister, these incidents of mob lynching have increased, and there have been many instances where ministers of Mr. Modi's cabinet have greeted and appreciated the lynch mobs, as in the members of the lynch mobs have been felicitated by Mr. Modi's ministers in more ways than one and more than one minister.
And so, Kavita, you know, no one's arguing, obviously, that religious sensitivities should not be taken into account by those who are living in India. If there are minorities, such as Muslims or others, should respect, of course, Hindu sensitivities as well, understandably. But what is it that do you think encourages these mobs? You've mentioned the politicians already, but is it just the politicians, do you think, encouraging these mobs to just act out on allegations, on things that are not even proven yet?
I want to clarify here that this is really not about religious sensitivity.
Okay.
All right. Religious sensitivity is about the cow and so on, can translate into many benign kinds of actions, such as, in fact, preventing cows from dying destitute on the streets from eating plastic. I would say that is not happening. This is really not about religious sensitivities at all. India is a very diverse country where even Hindus from non-Brahmin castes in many parts of the country do eat beef. All right, even in states in the northeast of India, in Kerala, for instance, it is pretty common for Hindus to eat beef. It's not at all unknown. So my point is that really this is not about religious sensitivities. This is about a pretext. This is about an excuse. This is one of the excuses, the cow. The other excuse is to say that a Hindu girl has fallen in love with a Muslim boy, and therefore the Muslim boy and his family should be lynched, or the couple should be subjected to violence, and so on. So another pretext is they call such relationships, interfaith relationships, love jihad. That's another myth. It's another excuse. So I think there's really no doubt at all that this is not about faith sensibilities or anyone trying to provoke them. That's not what's happening here. Which is why what you're saying is, you see, the point about the allegation is that any Muslim, it doesn't matter if he has eaten beef or killed a cow or anything like that. Even dairy farmers who are Muslims who do not kill cows, who in fact breed cows for milk, they are dairy farmers.
Yeah.
They are transporting cows for their dairy farm, and they have been attacked as well. A young boy like Junaid was killed on a train. He had nothing to do with cows. He was traveling on a train, and yet he was accused. So I think the pretext is not, pretext is cow killing. The main thing is that if you're Muslim, then you're vulnerable to some form of mob violence. India, blessed by India's ruling party today.
Okay, so let's talk about the ruling party for a moment, if we can, Kavita, because in these recent elections that we had, it seems that the tide is turning against them, politically speaking, where they've lost 3 major states in the country. Do you think now that the trend is that Indian citizens are realizing this is not the way that they want their country to go, this is not the direction they want this very large country to go in?
I think yes, to some extent, but I am wary of being extremely triumphant just yet, because I think there's a contest happening about the soul of the country. Okay. And for viewers in Pakistan, this will be familiar because you have been part of such a contest as well in your country. And here also there's a contest for the soul of what it means to be Indian. All right, so you still have people, I think the communalization, the anti-Muslim sense of prejudice and violence has gone extremely deep, and there has been an attempt to organize it, to empower it, and to unleash it on India. And at the same time, of course, there is a sense for common people who are farmers who think we should think of ourselves as farmers, we should think of ourselves as workers, we should think of ourselves as women, we should think of ourselves as youth, and we should not be divided as Hindu and Muslim. There is a sense of this kind as well. So you're having slogans coming up which are saying Hindu Musliman nahi Mazdoor Kisan, for instance. So this kind of slogan is coming up. People are trying to think like that. But I think there's still a lot of hard work to do. And I would say that the May 2019 election in India is going to be pretty crucial. If we get these fascists out of power, still the work of decommunalizing society, of trying to work at undoing the immense damage done by the hatred and Islamophobia that has been organized and empowered by the ruling party will still remain.
Okay, so then what needs to happen next then, Kavita? You've already spoken about that there are grassroots movements to address this issue of, as you termed it, Islamophobia or the targeting of other, possibly even within the class system, such as Dalit farmers or otherwise. Where does the solution lie in all this? Because I imagine, again, any solution would take a significant amount of time to be able to really have an effect.
One of the key things which is missing in India and has been missing for a long while is the sense of justice. So it's because such mobs feel a sense of impunity, because there's been so little punishment for mob violence, whether it's against Sikhs done by the Congress party, whether it is done against Muslims so many times by people, by police as well as by mobs of communal organizations and so on, there's been so little justice and such a lot of impunity that I think that is what needs to change. And those who are working to undo such impunity, to challenge such impunity, right now they're very vulnerable in today's India, in Mr. Modi's India, in the India ruled by Mr. Modi, because they are all facing all kinds of victimization. They are all vulnerable. So activists like us, like so many of us, who try to challenge these things are being branded as the ones who are divisive. So if you talk about communal violence, if you talk about this, you're being branded as divisive. So I think that is why the first thing that needs to happen is for this government to go, for the state machinery to be held accountable to secular values, values of the Indian Constitution that prohibit such kinds of prejudice and violence. That would be step one. And after that, I think along with that, the attempt to organize society to value justice, to value harmony between the various communities, and to value end to impunity. That is the harder work that we are all trying to do, but it's not very easy.
And as a final question then, Kavita, before letting you go, I wanted to come full circle back to Nasiruddin Shah, if I may, just for a moment, because his statement, obviously, as I said at the beginning, has angered many people, and he has, of course, gotten some supporters as well. But he essentially said that he's worried for his children, for the future of India, and I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said that his children have been brought up secular, really, have not been taught any specific faith or to follow any specific. But speaking in those general terms, then, on this macro issue of the future of the country, of the secular country, are you also, as an activist, worried for the future generations, for this generation, etc.?
Extremely worried. From what I hear, even being a Muslim child in an Indian school today, anywhere in the country, is not easy. There's immense communal prejudice towards Muslims, towards Muslim children, and even towards other minorities. And so I really worry, because I think that it's not, the issue is, of course, it is about a political party that is in power, but it's also about the kind of society that we are becoming and the kind of society that we are being transformed into. And it's really a challenge for every Indian to think about whether they want this society to become a kind of benchmark society, a fascist society, or a society that prides itself on being inclusive, on being democratic, and on being accommodative of difference, and in fact appreciative of differences. I think really this is about looking into our souls as people, as Indians, and as a society. And I do worry. I'm deeply worried, like many others.
Didn't he, about the fact that we've seen this in India now playing out specifically really after the BJP came into power, especially. It's heightened since that's happened. But do you think that now there's almost a rejection of that? Because in the latest elections, we had major losses, didn't we, for the BJP?
There comes a point of time in every democracy when people choose. People choose every 5 years in our country. People chose Narendra Modi because he had, he promised a lot. He promised Vikas, which is development. He promised jobs. He promised employment, etc., etc. He promised to fix the agrarian crisis. The fact is, has there been delivery on all? No. I think people see through things like this. So, much like in Pakistan, I think every time we have an election near, we know that, we'll hear a lot of polarizing talk. We know suddenly out of nowhere the Ram Mandir will emerge, and everyone will suddenly start talking about it, the politicians at least. Now, I wonder whether you are familiar with our deity called Hanuman. Half man, half monkey. Suddenly, all of a sudden in the last month or so, we've had politicians of all colors come out and try and claim Hanuman to say he's Dalit or he's Brahmin or he's Jat. There was a Muslim MLC yesterday in Uttar Pradesh, from where Mr. Nasiruddin Shah comes from. He's spoken about how Hanuman is actually a Muslim. So, I think people see through things like this. And there has been a rejection of this polarizing politics, or at least that's the way I see it. When there are 3 states that the BJP ruled, they've been wiped out of there. The fact is, something has gone wrong in the BJP's narrative, and I do think that the electorate, the voter, either in Pakistan or in India or across the world, they are super sensible. They are smart people. You can fool them for 3 years, 4 years, but no more. Having said that, very quickly to what your panelist said, your other panelist said about Naseeruddin Shah. He did speak about Virat Kohli, and he said Virat Kohli is one of the best batsmen in the world, but he's one of the worst badly behaved players he has seen, which is true. In the tweet, very interestingly, tongue-in-cheek, he also put out, I plan to stay in my country, I don't plan to leave. So I think that's the sort of humor that you need to deal with right-wing trolls who tell you to go back to, who tell every Muslim to go to Pakistan every time they make a statement like this, you know.
Indeed, and in this case, I believe a BJP politician has bought Naseeruddin Shah a ticket to Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken.
He's not a BJP politician. He's not a BJP politician. He's a right-wing loon. He's not from the BJP, and he's known to do stunts like this. But what's the point of buying him a ticket if you don't get him a visa? You know, that was my question to him.
Yeah. No, if I can, and I appreciate bringing that up, Shreya, but Salman, if we can, I'd like to go to the heart of the issues. What Naseeruddin Shah was talking about is actually a very serious issue, obviously, because lives have been lost by this mob violence. And he spoke very specifically about this case in Bulandshahr in India, where this policeman was essentially trying to control a mob that was angry because apparently a cow had been slaughtered, and this was an alleged slaughter, had not yet been proven. What do you make of that mentality and the fact that this is such serious business, but yet he's being attacked for even, bringing it up, really?
Yeah. Because you're not supposed to, you see. The majority, or even if it's a minority, especially if they are what we call fundamentalists, whether they're Hindus, Christians, or Muslims. And they dislike, they just say, this is the rule, this is the law as we see it, not as how others see it. This is how we see it, and you better order yourself according to our perception. And if you do anything outside that, that's not allowed, that's not permissible. So obviously, that's why they're called extremists, because that is what extremism is all about. It's an extreme view which just says this is the right thing and we cannot be doing or saying anything wrong. You are wrong. So correct yourself, basically.
Right. No, and I'm glad you brought that up, because Shreya, that's essentially the point of view, isn't it? That's essentially the mindset that goes into these mobs, isn't it? That where even a policeman would be killed in such a case, when he's actually trying to bring, some peace to a situation, such as that mob violence that we had in Bulandshahr.
That's true, because the mob feels they have protection, and we have seen this not just in the case of Bulandshahr. We have seen this, in the last 2 years, we've seen this on multiple occasions, where people who are accused of smuggling cows or butchering cows, when they were not even smuggling or butchering cows, they were doing absolutely illegal trade, where mobs have surrounded people and decided to lynch them. It's happened across the country. The mob mentality is we'll get away with it because we have protection. It's all in the name of the cow. The cow, as you know, is hugely sacred to Hindus.
Let's continue with you. As Shreya there ended off talking about, and I think it's an important point. Yes, the cow is sacred for Hindus, and I think everybody in India would respect that, including the Muslims and other minorities. But we're talking in this specific case about alleged slaughters of cows, or simply just transporting cows, farmers or herders transporting cows, some of them not even Muslim, just Dalits, who are transporting cows from one place to another. Why do you think that would be such an issue and would arouse so much anger in such cases?
It's basically, a lot of it is related to ignorance and the frustration of the masses. They probably, in the name of religion, they can give vent to certain anger and a certain amount of frustration which they can't otherwise. And with people making electoral promises and not managing to keep them one way or the other, and the frustration grows. And I think it's a kind of probably in democracies it's a continuing cyclical process. I mean, not just in India or Pakistan, but everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, like for instance, I mean, whatever I know of, or what President Trump has promised, how far is he managing to really deliver that? And so it just happens, and I think it's very strange. It's a cathartic thing, I think, and the mob, which is the mass in a way, which has majority support, as the lady is saying in Delhi. They just have the support, and they know that they can get away with it. You see, it is a crime, and they can get away with it.
Yeah.
So they do it.
Shri, I wanted to bring you back in, and right before we got cut off with you, you were mentioning, you know, how sacred the cow is for those who follow the Hindu faith. So I'm wondering, in these specific cases, though, for example, Bulandshahr, this was an allegation of cow slaughter. We've had herders as well, as you well know, you probably know a lot better than I do, herders attacked, even those who are not Muslim, just Dalits or people of other castes as well. This has gotten a bit out of hand, hasn't it? And why hasn't anyone really spoken up about trying to control the situation?
Well, you know, to be fair, the Prime Minister of this country, Narendra Modi, has over again publicly said anyone killing in the name of the cow is a criminal. This has been said over and over again. But the fact is, you know, I just heard your panelists say that the mob has majority support. The mob actually doesn't have majority support. My mother, for example, is a very pious Hindu, will feed cows every day, you know, at night. Every day at night, her routine is that she will go feed a cow because she thinks it's a sacred duty. She's also a BJP voter and a great fan of Narendra Modi. But when someone like my mother, who, you know, sees instances of mob violence, especially in the name of the cow, she thinks it's ridiculous. You know, she thinks no one should be killed in the name of the cow. That's what majority Indians feel. However, the mob feels they can get away with murder because they have political patronage. Since we are talking about Naseeruddin Shah, there's a quick point I'd want to make as well. You know, Naseeruddin Shah is a bit of an aberration in the Indian film industry. The fact is that our film industry is very politically correct. We do not know what the political views of our top stars are. Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan, Amir Khan, who spoke up, and then has been, you know, there's been a deathly silence from him because he had to suffer for the views he had articulated very rightly. We do not know what Priyanka Chopra or Aishwarya Rai's politics is. We simply don't know because our industry is way too politically correct, unlike Hollywood. Therefore, when you have an actor like Naseeruddin Shah very confidently come out in front of cameras and make the sort of statement that he's made and articulate the sort of view that he has, I think that's when people are taken a little by surprise. You know, because what we are used to is stars being absolutely silent. I mean, it's not the way things are in Hollywood. I wish Bollywood would be a little more political. I wish Bollywood would speak out about issues that concern this country as well. They are citizens of this country. It's not like they're so cut off the reality that things like, you know, people dying in the name of the cow doesn't upset them. I'm sure it upsets them. But everyone tries to keep quiet because they say, "Chalo, humse kya hai?" That, I think, is a problem, and that is where Naseeruddin Shah is the shining light. You need more people like him. You need not just more actors like him, you need more citizens like him across the world.
Salman, do you agree with that? Do you think, and I'm going to put you on the spot, if I may, as an actor yourself, do you feel like in your position where you have this public face and you have this public influence, of course, do you think it's important for people like you to speak out on issues that you feel strongly about?
Absolutely. I think it is very important because if you are a public figure, big or small, you have influence. And it is good to use your influence for an issue that you have your heart in. I think that's absolutely right. And yes, the Indian film industry undoubtedly, whether the rest of India ever stays secular or not, is undoubtedly secular. I mean, right from the start. It's been, it continues to be, and actors have always used their influence, and they've been ambassadors of goodwill for the United Nations. They've done various things. They've done charities. It's throughout the world. I mean, and I think it is generally perceived that, yes, if they do come out like Mr. Nasiruddin Shah has right now and said something, I mean, and spoken his mind, they have a right to do that. And, well, then it's a question of whether some people like it, whether they don't. And usually there is a divide. There are people who like what a person says, and there are people who don't like what he says.
Yeah. Okay, and I'll give the final word to you then, Shreya, as we're running out of time. So I just wanted to ask then, Shreya, about your own, then I'm going to put you on the spot as well, your own personal opinion on this vis-a-vis the worry that was expressed by Mr. Nasiruddin Shah about his own children and about essentially the future, saying what direction, I'm paraphrasing, of course, the direction the country is going in. Are you also worried?
As I said, every right-thinking citizen in India is worried every time a citizen of this country gets killed in the name of the cow. That is one worry. You know, it's a worry that I think every Indian has. It is a worry that every Indian has. But is the situation out of control? Maybe it seems like that if you're outside India, but it's not. There are, you know, like in every country, there are enough right-minded citizens who, like Nasiruddin Shah, come out and speak about it. There are enough and more people in the television medium, in the news business, who will come out and speak about it. And, you know, I think their job, their job is to shape public opinion. Nasiruddin Shah, one way, that was one way of shaping public opinion. As the news media, it's our job to shape public opinion. And the fact is, this is the fringe. This is the fringe that is embarrassing India, and this is not mainstream. That's what I'll say, because the impression is that things are completely out of control, that every second day there is a herder or a trader who's getting killed in the name of the cow. That's not how it's working out. The number of instances have certainly gone down. They had reached a worrying high. They have come down. We are, again, very close to an election, Waqar, as you know, close to 2019 elections. We will hear a lot of polarizing talk. We will hear a lot of polarizing talk. But I think politicians realize that, you know, it's best to speak about Vikas, which is development, before an election, rather than religion on the Ram Mandir. But it may not pay you the sort of dividends that you think it did in 2014. I think between 2014 and 2019, 5 years apart, changed. All of us are way smarter about what we want. I guess all of us want a Ram Mandir, but we don't want Muslims getting killed in the name of the cow. Certainly not. That is not what India is. We are a secular nation. We're a proud secular nation. If Nasiruddin Shah has, you know, had the right to speak, so do I. And none of us, I know, should get punished for speaking another mind. And we don't. Nasiruddin Shah expected a lot more backlash. It hasn't happened. To me, that's the story.
Very well, Shreya. We'll leave it there at that as our final. Of course, we appreciate all of our guests. We appreciate Shreya Dondial, who's speaking to us live there from New Delhi, senior editor at CNN IBN. And of course, Mr. Salman Shahid, renowned actor here in Pakistan, who joined us here in our Lahore studios. We appreciate you coming in and taking your time out to share your thoughts with us. Earlier, we of course also had Kavita Krishnan, who was speaking to us live from Delhi, and she was secretary of the All India Progressive Women's Association, and she shared her thoughts on this very important topic too. So viewers, we played for you earlier Nasiruddin Shah's clip there about his thoughts about this mob justice and mob violence, I would call it, in India, about you know, the sacredness of cows. And this was just an allegation in Bulandshahr that a policeman was killed in trying to control the mob from carrying out its violent acts. We'll keep a very close eye, of course, on these and other developing stories, not just coming out of India, but throughout this region and the world. Thanks for watching this edition of Scope. I've been Waqar Rizvi.